Good afternoon, everyone. I don't know if you remember, some while back in September, I gave a sermon on time. And I mentioned during that sermon how precious time is. It's one of the most precious things that we have been given, time. And I mentioned about drawing a grid. Do you remember that? I said if you draw a little grid, say 9 by 9, where each square represents 1 year, that more or less represents a lifetime, at least according to the average life expectancy. Of course, there will be some who live a lot longer and some who live a lot less. And if you actually followed that, you'd end up with something that looks something like that. Did anyone try that out? It can be a bit discouraging. That's what mine looks like. And you kind of see what you've had and you see what you've got left, and it kind of makes you feel perhaps that you've got to get cracking on some of those things that you haven't got around to it yet to do. But the thing is, that is not really reality. That's not really what it's like. It should be more like this, for us at least. Can you see that? There's your lifetime, but this is part of the years that will follow, part of the rest of eternity. I want you to turn to a very familiar scripture. In fact, it's so familiar that you almost might not bother to turn there, but let's turn there anyway. That's John 3:16. You probably know this by heart. But there's one little part of it that I'd like to focus on, which tends to kind of get overlooked a little bit. The significance and meaning of it. John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. Now that last little phrase there, everlasting life, that actually means an eternity of time. This most precious gift that we have now, God is going to give to us forever. Unlimited time. Can you imagine? The word everlasting life in the Greek, everlasting, it really does mean everlasting. It's from a root that means perpetual. And it means eternal. It means forever. Some have said it only means age-lasting. Well, that word, if you want to check it up, can be found also in Romans 16:26. If you want to just note that down, it's used to describe God. In Romans 16:26, God is eternal. Is God just for a limited time? I don't think so. Well, God has promised us an eternity of time in that verse. No one will ever say again, I haven't got time. You won't be able to make excuses, I haven't got around to it yet. You won't need around to it. You will have unlimited time. So, that represents, let's open this up, shall we? First, before I do, let me just point out, do you know how many squares there are on that sheet? In addition to this lifetime, the remaining squares, almost exactly 1,000. So that would be like the millennium. That's how many years it looks like. And if we open this sheet up, we'll see a little bit more of eternity. That's just over 12,000 years. Can you all see that? I don't know whether at the back you can see the squares, but each square is 1 year. And there's your lifetime, your physical lifetime. And that's just a little bit of the infinity of time that God is offering to us. So, I came across another representation of time, which I thought was rather good. I'd like to share it with you. I don't know whether anyone's ever seen this, but I have over here a little prop that I like to just get hold of quickly. It's a piece of rope. Now imagine this rope represents time. And this rope kind of goes on forever. Without end, it just goes on and on and on. And this is time. And here, see this little red bit on the end? That's your lifetime. And did you know that nearly everybody in this world is spending, let's say, most of that time there planning, preparing, saving, hoarding, collecting for that little bit of time on the end. That's all their concern is. So most of this time their thoughts are only on this little bit at the end. They don't really have any thought about all of this eternity of time that goes on and on and on. So let's just have another look at that verse in John 3:16 a moment, if you've still got it open, because in context, this is not saying that just a casual belief in Jesus Christ is all that's required. Let's look at verse 19 in this passage. Verse 19 says, "And this is the condemnation, that light is come into the world," that light being Jesus Christ, "and men loved darkness rather than light, because their deeds were evil. For everyone that does evil hates the light, neither comes to the light, lest his deeds should be reproved," or exposed. "But he that does truth comes to the light, that his deeds may be made manifest, that they are wrought in God." I want to read that last bit from the Amplified Bible, which says, "And this is the condemnation, that light is come into the world." Sorry, I'm reading verse 19 again here. In the Amplified Bible, verse 21 reads, "But he who practices truth, who does what is right, comes out into the light, so that his works may be plainly shown to be what they are, wrought with God, divinely prompted, done with God's help, in dependence upon him." So this passage is bringing out the importance of your deeds. What you do will have an impact. Now, I said that our opportunity to inhabit eternity, which is what God is offering to us. God inhabits eternity, you will read in Isaiah. I think it's around Isaiah 57, 15, if you wanted to make a note of that. It says God inhabits eternity. God is offering us the opportunity to inhabit eternity. But it's not for a casual belief in Jesus Christ. Matthew 16:27. Let's turn there now. Matthew 16:27. "For the Son of Man shall come in the glory of his Father with his angels. And then he shall reward every man according to his works, according to his deeds." That means that's what you're doing, what we're all doing in this little bit of space of time here. And what we'll be doing in the rest of this time will depend very much on what we're doing in this little space of time. So it's important for us to consider in everything we plan to do, everything that we actually do, that we think of it in context of eternity rather than just tomorrow, just next week, next year, or our retirement. I want to turn to a little story now in Matthew, where is it? Luke chapter 12. Luke chapter 12 is a parable about a man who did this very thing. He thought only about the present. He had no concern, no concept of eternity. So in Luke chapter 12, and beginning in verse 16, and he spoke a parable unto them, saying, the ground of a certain rich man brought forth plentifully. And he thought within himself, saying, what shall I do? Because I have no room where to bestow any fruits, or where to bestow my fruits. And he said, this I will do. I will pull down my barns, and I'll build even bigger ones. And there will I bestow all my fruits and my goods. He's going to hoard it all. He's going to store it all up. Who for? The poor? His family? Verse 19, and I will say to my soul, soul, you have much goods laid up for many years. Take your ease, eat, drink, and be merry. But God said unto him, you fool, this night your soul shall be required of you. Then whose shall those things be which you have provided? So is he, verse 21, that lays up treasure for himself and is not rich toward God. Now, one of the points of this passage is that this man really had no concept for anything other than his own benefit, his own welfare, his own comfort. Probably had no concern for anybody else but himself. And all his wealth he wanted to just hoard on himself. So he was planning, saving, hoarding, and planning to hoard. All that for that little bit of space at the end of his life, to make sure that he lived in comfort. So we need to think about what we do and what our actions are, what we're planning, and does it fit in with the whole of eternity, or does it just fit in with our limited lifetime only? I find it quite sobering, actually, that everything I do or don't do could have some impact on the rest of eternity. You know, the parable of the pounds in Luke 19 does indicate that what we do in eternity will be determined by what we do in this life, by degrees. So we need to ask ourselves, or we all need to ask the same question. Am I giving enough attention to eternity? Or is all my focus and concern only on this present life now?